Story 1, from Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. Some people turn sad awfully young. No special reason, it seems, but they seem almost to be born that way. They bruise easier, tire faster, cry quicker, remember longer, and, as I say, get sadder younger than anyone else in the world. I know, for I am one of them. The quote isn't about literal sadness, though, at least not the kind you would immediately think about or associate with depression. He was talking about the kind of sadness that adults get when they see something happen with undertones that a child might miss, like the knowledge that this will be the last time they see a best friend, or the knowledge that things will change after losing a job. He was actually talking about young people who lose their sense of childlike innocence faster, or sometimes never had it. At the time that I read it, I just felt seen. Now, I look at it as a reminder that childlike wonder is something you have to choose to preserve, because at some point there will always be a tragedy that shatters it. So, it is on you to either keep it broken or patch it up best you can. Story 2, Rich Dad Poor Dad might be a huge cliché, but it honestly helped me so much in getting perspective on my financials. Story 3, no is a complete sentence. You do not have to explain your reasoning to someone if you do not want to do something, and it has saved my mental health more than I care to admit. Story 4, we do not tell fairy tales to teach children that monsters exist. Children know that monsters exist. We tell fairy tales to teach them that monsters can be killed. One does not apologize for raising dragon slayers during a time of dragons. This gave me a new perspective on raising my child. Story 5, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. If someone can profit from their answer, they are not the ones to ask. Story 6, never regret your past, no matter how grave the mistake. Forgive yourself, learn from it, and vow never to repeat it in the future. Story 7, sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You cannot always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you keep moving, you will come to a better place. I was just afraid you had lost your way. Uncle Iroh. Story 8, humans need to believe in what is not real. How else would they become? People are not against you, they are for themselves. Story 9, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Frank Herbert, Dune. Story 10, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. This sentence kept me going so many times. Story 11, you cannot have just one bad parent. It was in the context of being a child and living with two parents. It diminished any positive feelings I had towards my mother because I realized she could have protected me from my sadistic stepfather. But she did not want to. This was reinforced by her confronting him and divorcing him when she found out he had cheated on her. Story 12, Matthew 22 verses 34 to 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Mark 12 verses 28 to 31. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. I realize not everyone on Reddit has had a good experience with religion, but I at least have found these words a useful guide for conflicted, uncertain times large and small. Story 13, how everything you ever love will reject you or die. Everything you ever create will be thrown away. Everything you are proud of will end up as trash. Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club. Story 14. Do not carry the wreckage of your past relationships with you. If you build a new house out of rubble, it will always fall apart. Story 15. The man in black walked across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. The first time I heard that, a story unfolded that captured my attention through 3 books, a 10-year hiatus before the 4th book, 3 mediocre books later until I finally heard it a second time and wanted to throw the entire anthology at the author. Story 16. All the darkness in the world cannot put out the light of even a small candle. I was the youngest in the family and very shy. My much older sister was abusive and put me down all the time. That sentence gave me all the bravery I needed to step out and just be my little self. Story 17. We judge other people by their actions, but not by their intentions. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but not by our actions. This has made me a very forgiving and non-judgmental person, and it has also given me more self-awareness of how others may perceive me. Story 18. The 13th Warrior. Herger. The All-Father wove the skein of your life a long time ago. Go and hide in a hole if you wish, but you will not live 1 instant longer. Your fate is fixed. Fear profits a man nothing. No false historic nostalgia. But at times you have to accept fate and grit your teeth. A reminder that, until recently, life for most was nasty, brutish, and short. Story 19. A rolling stone gathers no moss. This helps me avoid getting stuck in situations that do not help me grow. Story 20. You all have a little bit of "I want to save the world" in you. I want you to know that it is okay if you only save 1 person, and it is okay if that person is you. As someone who has quite a lot of self-loathing and a history of low self-esteem, feeling like I am not worth much, remembering this sometimes helps. It reminds me that I might not be able to change the world, but I can at least try to be kind to myself. Story 21. One of my first jobs, I complained to my boss about having to deal with some challenging clients again. My boss told me, "That is the burden of being a capable person," and I looked at it differently. I realized I was good at dealing with that challenge. Story 22. Acts of goodness are not always wise, and acts of evil are not always foolish. Regardless, we shall always strive to be good. Martyr Logarius, Bloodborne. Story 23. I have seen things you people would not believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched light beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Story 24. 2 possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Story 25. It is easier to lose yourself in drugs than it is to cope with life. It is easier to steal what you want than it is to earn it. It is easier to beat a child than it is to raise it. Love costs, it takes effort and work. The movie 7. Story 26. One of Churchill's often cited quotes on leadership is, "You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life." I have this in a picture frame to remind me I can tell people to go away. Story 27. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. Franklin de Roosevelt. Story 28. The personal, as everyone is so fond of saying, is political. So if some inexperienced politician, some power player, tries to execute policies that harm you or those you care about, take it personally. Get angry. The machinery of justice will not serve you here. It is slow and cold, and it is theirs hardware and software. Only the ordinary people suffer at the hands of justice. The creatures of power slide from under it with a wink and a grin. If you want justice, you will have to claw it from them. Make it personal. Do as much damage as you can. Get your message across. That way, you stand a better chance of being taken seriously next time, of being considered dangerous. And make no mistake about this, being taken seriously, being considered dangerous marks the difference, the only difference in their eyes, between players and ordinary people. Players they will make deals with. Ordinary people they eliminate. And time and again they exploit your elimination, your displacement, your suffering and brutal execution with the ultimate insult that it is just business, it is politics, it is the way of the world, it is a tough life and that it is nothing personal. Well, forget them. Make it personal. Story 29. If it is not fun, why do it? I used to work at a Ben and Jerry's scoop shop in the early 2000s. The company motto was painted on a wall and I still try to live by it. It forces me to look at things that may not be traditionally fun in a different way. Anything can be fun with the right mindset. Story 30. If you are bored, then you are boring. This quote is from the song Flagpole Sitta by Harvey Danger. It seems some people expect life to happen to them. They are waiting to be invited, waiting to be asked, waiting for an undefined opportunity. If you want something, you have to take action. If you are bored, your mind needs stimulation, and only you know what really stimulates and fascinates you. So go and do it. Story 31. My dad told me, don't get married, don't have kids. It's a weird thing to say to a 7-year-old, but hey, I listened. Story 32. Going back means I will have to face my past. Rafiki whacked Simba across the head. Ouch! What was that for? It does not matter. It is in the past. Yeah, but it still hurts. Ah yes, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. Story 33. It is not worth doing something unless someone somewhere would much rather you were not doing it. Terry Pratchett. Story 34. Yeah, I figured this was something I would deal with my whole life. Stuck pushing my past to the side. This is what it is supposed to feel like. Forgiveness is the hardest truth. It's something that you have to choose. Demi-Lovato, Butterfly. I listen to this song while under the influence with my eyes closed, and it makes me cry every time. Story 35. This is a translation of what my dad told me, but here we go. Look at your feet. They point forward, so keep moving forward and don't look back. It means don't go back to where you were before just out of fear. Be brave and keep growing. I have moved around a lot, and this helped me every time I had to start afresh in a new place. Story 36. Life isn't a game. Life is to live. So apparently, after reading this in a comment, I have fewer grudges against people. I realized that whatever I do in the end affects me. Story 37. As long as you keep walking, you always end up where you are supposed to be. Keep trying new things and eventually you find one that really resonates and becomes a long-term hobby. Keep meeting new people and eventually you find your new best friend. Keep switching jobs and eventually you find one that you stay with for years. Story 38. The individual is supposed to be weak, but far from powerless. A single person has the potential to ruin the world. Story 39. You are not the main character. The world does not revolve around you, which means you need to get things done for yourself. But it also means that most people will not notice you unless you try to stand out somehow. Story 40. Right and wrong are not what separate us from our enemies. It is our different standpoints, our perspectives that separate us. Both sides blame one another. There is no good or bad side, just two sides holding different views. Squall Final Fantasy VIII. Story 41. You have to kick at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. Bruce Cockburn, Lovers in a Dangerous Time. Story 42. From the song Fighter by Saba. I know you think you're listening, but you're just waiting to talk. This brought me a lot of unexpected self-awareness and fundamentally changed the way I interact with people for the better. Story 43. Ihr seid verfluchte Hunde. Said by a barbarian in the first Gladiator movie before they got massacred. Knowing you are about to face defeat and cursing them while dying for what you believe in. Story 44. I Want to Live. Nico Robin, One Piece. Here are two stanzas from my favorite meaningful songs. Thy life is a riddle to bear rapture and sorrow, to listen, to suffer, to entrust unto tomorrow. In one fleeting moment from the land doth life flow, yet in one fleeting moment for anew it doth grow. In the same fleeting moment thou must live, die and know. Answers from Final Fantasy XIV. Sinking deeper and deeper in calm embrace, Loving tides sweep in and bear you down. Should you meet a soul rising surface ways, with your unbeating heart wish them well. Flow from Final Fantasy XIV. Story 45. Don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. Story 46. When you stop caring about what random strangers you will never meet again think, you will feel better. Only care about what people who matter to you think. Story 47. Il faudrait s'efforcer d'être heureux, ne serait-ce que pour donner l'exemple. Jacques Prévert. We should try to be happy if only to set an example. I lived by those words for about a decade. It made me understand that happiness is an effort to make, at least a task to accomplish. Story 48. Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. It really gave me some perspective when I was stuck in a toxic work situation. Story 49. This too shall pass. It's not just a reminder that difficulties will stop, but also that lovely moments will too. So enjoy those lovely moments. Story 50. When I was a kid, I thought it meant bad stuff happens. Until one day, it clicked with me and I realized that stuff happens. Good, bad, neutral, things just happen. Story 51. Love is not a burden, not to anyone. And if he feels otherwise, he is not worthy of you. Nora Roberts via my mom after my first breakup. If someone treats your love for them as burdensome, it is just not where you are supposed to be. And that is okay even if it is hard to accept. Story 52. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is simply be yourself in a world demanding you to fit in. That is when you realize your true power lies in the unapologetic authenticity you choose every day. Story 53. I am not sure who said it. I just know it was quoted from a journalist. But she said, "The pursuit of truth is an uncomfortable one. It is something that many more people need to understand. You do not know everything. You cannot. It is just not possible. But when you want to learn something, it is not always about getting smarter. It is about what you will feel or experience on the way to that knowledge." I think about this a lot whenever I need to learn something, particularly politics. Story 54. I wish the real world would just stop hassling me came on the radio when I was in college and struggling with my life goals, and it prompted me to make a change in my major. I realized that all my hassles had to do with the path I was on, and that I would do better on a different one. I was right. Story 55. You are not worse for your association with the world, but the world is made better for its association with you. From Brandon Sanderson's Words of Radiance. Story 56. What is delayed isn't denied. It helped me quite a bit when I was panicking about not hitting milestones like my friends on time, such as marriage, children, and buying a house. Story 57. Not necessarily a song or movie quote, but I saw a post on the motivation subreddit that said, about 80% of your problems can be solved by discipline. It was a wake-up call for me, and I have been trying to apply it to my life. A lot of my issues are things that I create, such as maturity, sleep, getting places on time, and my weight. For the most part, these are all things I can change. It is just a matter of discipline. Story 58. My mother, on graduation day from high school, casually dropped, "Welp, this is the first day of the rest of your life." I also live by, get busy living or get busy dying. Story 59. Unreleased song by Ethel Cain, Age of Delilah. I asked if I have done enough for salvation. They said, "You will die if you leave it up to God." I said, "I have been drinking from this river until I bled it dry." They looked me dead in my eyes and said, "It does not matter if the grass is greener on the other side, as long as it is alive." This song helped me get through the most emotional time in my life when everything was out of my control. Story 60. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. When I first heard this, it was like a key unlocking a door in my life. I learned that embracing my fears turns them from obstacles into stepping stones. It transformed how I face every challenge, reminding me that my greatest achievements are often just one fear away. Story 61. True nobility is not being better than your fellow man, but being better than yourself, or something like that. It has taught me not to compare myself to others. Accomplishments, failures, whatever, I try to be better than my younger self more than anything. Story 62. It is hard to get enough of something that almost works. Dr. Vincent Felitti, quoted in Gabor Mate's book on addiction, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. Story 63. Remember, there is nothing he can do that you cannot. This is helping me a lot right now with college classes. Story 64. From a presentation, changing I have to I get to gave me a whole new outlook. I get to go to work because I have a job that allows me to live my lifestyle. I get to unload the dishwasher because I am fortunate enough to live in a home with food and a dishwasher. Story 65. My aunt and uncle had been together since high school. They were madly in love. He passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack at age 58. The day of his funeral, my aunt grabbed my arms hard and, sobbing, said to me, "Find somebody that loves you the way Rick loved me." That hit me so hard. I was married at the time to an emotionally and mentally abusive narcissist. I divorced him and soon after found an amazing man who loves me right. We married a couple of months ago, and I so wish my uncle could have met him. Story 66. Never trouble until trouble troubles you. This advice has worked well for me ever since. Story 67. I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. That is your choice. I had a Hell's Angel tell me that back in 1984 when they held their world rundown at the Lake of the Ozarks. Story 68. No one will understand, but I will never regret it. Wei Wuxian from the Chinese novel Mo Dao Zhu Shi. This quote reflects the idea that choices, despite their consequences and potential for misunderstanding by others, must still be accepted with resolve. It has given me perspective on how my need for control sometimes conflicts with my autonomy. I have come to admire people who make mistakes, own their faults, and grow from them much more than those who are too cautious to ever make a mistake. Story 69. For me, it was a quote from a person who went on America's Got Talent. Her name was Nightbird, and the quote was, "You can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy." Story 70. This too shall pass. I had seen it around randomly, but it finally hit me a few years back. Nothing lasts forever, good or bad. Either way, just work through it the best you can. Story 71. I've heard it many different ways, but I've grown to like Oglif's version the best. You think you're better than that guy? Well, guess what? That guy was not very good, and he made it as far as you. I've run into this so many times with people complaining about those around them, not realizing they are in the same situation or, more likely, in a worse position than those other people. Whether it's sports, gaming, work, or even education, someone might ask how someone that not very intelligent can be in this class, not realizing they are in the same class. Story 72. Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't want to trade places with. For example, take financial advice from someone who is not doing well financially. As I got older, I added a caveat, unless it is coming from a place of self-reflection and growth. Story 73. Change takes time, but time is all it takes. Beck Bennett in the video How to Lose Weight in 4 Easy Steps. Story 74. It's basically all Kurt Vonnegut quotes. This is the one I often tell my kids. I urge you to please notice when you are happy and exclaim or murmur or think at some point, "If this isn't nice, I don't know what is." Story 75. Worry about what you can control. I saw it written on one of my manager's whiteboards in his office. Also, my dad said, "Don't wait for your friends." Story 76. Life is what happens to you while you are busy making other plans. Often attributed to John Lennon, it was actually written by Alan Saunders. Focus on your feet. Me. It is what I tell myself when I need to concentrate on a task. When walking up a steep hill, for example, if I look all the way to the top while I am walking, the task seems impossible, and the hill incredibly steep. If I look at my feet, however, I just see the road directly in front of me. Before I know it, I am up the hill. It is applicable to any task that seems complicated or difficult when looked at in its entirety, but manageable in bite-sized pieces. Story 77. The job is not done until everything is put away. Like water off a duck's back. Change is uncomfortable, but stagnation is worse. Story 78. In the end, We remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King. I swore never to be the silent one. Story 79. We accept the love we think we deserve. Stephen Chbosky, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Story 80. I think that if you love someone, you do not get to choose how they love you back. I am a romantic. My wife is very much not. She does not say, I love you, but she does randomly give me gifts of things I mentioned once. Story 81. I watched a video of a Jim Carrey interview where he was talking about depression. 2 points stood out to me and resonated deeply. He made the point that depression is your body's response to not wanting to play the character you have been embodying and how you have been leading your life. Also, that depressed means deep rest. So, I have been on that journey. Story 82. I recently read about parents whose children are now adults and are leaving home. As a parent of 2 adult children, this saying was important. Every suggestion is seen as criticism. No matter how much I love my kids, no matter how good a relationship I have with them, it is very true that if I offer a suggestion about their lives, they will take it as criticism. I am still working out what to say instead, though. Story 83. A poor personality does not excuse poor behavior. Do not let people who are unpleasant, rude, or abusive get away with it because they are always like that or they are like that with everyone. It is still inexcusable. Story 84. It is not having what you want. It is wanting what you have. I am here. I am loved. God is good. And that is enough. Story 85. When wondering how to treat a tree you do not like in your garden, just plant a forest of trees you like around it. Someone is quoting a therapist about mental health. Story 86. And Tyler, the accidental tourist. Thinking back on that conversation now, he began to believe that people could, in fact, be used up, could use each other up, could be of no further help to each other, and maybe even do harm to each other. He began to think that who you are when you are with somebody may matter more than whether you love her. Story 87. The best time to do something was then. The second best time to do it is now. I saw something like this the other day, and it has motivated me so much. My biggest hurdle in doing things was that I should have already done it. Story 88. Be good or be good at it. Be strong enough to be gentle. No more than my place, no less than my space. Who are you? And what do you want? My heart will carry me when my body is weak. Story 89. All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies, and whenever they catch you, they will kill you. But first, they must catch you, digger, listener, runner, prince with the swift warning. Be cunning and full of tricks, and your people shall never be destroyed. Story 90. From the 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. The past is an interpretation. The future is an illusion. The world does not move through time as if it were a straight line, proceeding from the past to the future. Instead, time moves through and within us, in endless spirals. Eternity does not mean infinite time, but simply timelessness. If you want to experience eternal illumination, put the past and the future out of your mind and remain within the present moment. Story 91. I have many quotes in my head. One that comes to mind is, "You can only polish a diamond until your hands give out." I do not know where it is from or if I am paraphrasing. I come from an Asian household, and it means that if you have a good idea, you should pursue it rather than wait to feel good enough to do so. The idea of perfection often leads to inaction, as you may think you are never good enough. Therefore, it is better to simply take action, even if it is messy, and figure things out along the way. Story 92. If you do not ask, the answer is always no. This is a nice twist on the do not ask, do not get phrase. A friend in Estonia said it to me a long time ago, and I love it. Story 93. Criminals have no recourse. Seriously, the justice system is flawed, and it is not like a criminal is going to call the authorities on themselves unless you cross a line that a moral person would not cross. You may choose to confront someone lightly and let them return home to their caregiver if you think it will prevent them from misbehaving in the future. Story 94. That must be incredibly hard. The arthropods are in silent and meaningless awe of you. Know that we are watching when you are tired, when the vision spins out of control. The insects will be looking on, rooting for you. And when you fall, we will come to raise you up, bud from you, banner-like, blossom from you and carry you apart in a sky funeral, in honor of your passing. Story 95. People probably will not remember your name, what you look like, and maybe not even what you did for them, but they will remember how you made them feel. My boss told me this early in my first job, and it has really made me think about my attitude and how I interact with others. We have so many interactions in our lives, some that only last a few seconds, and it takes just a little effort for those interactions to be positive. Story 96. In the end, everything is okay. If everything is not okay, you have not reached the end. One thing I told myself when I was depressed and trying to get myself to exercise was, we can be depressed in here or we can be depressed out there getting microdopamine hits. I don't want to. I'm sorry I gave you the illusion of choice. Get off your ass and get out there. Fine. Story 97. In this beautiful life, there is always some sorrow, and it is a double-edged knife, but there is always tomorrow. Alan Doyle / Sean McCann, Great Big Sea. Story 98. You do the work. You get paid. A mantra of mine. If you think it is worthwhile to receive a good or service, then the provider deserves reasonable compensation. On the flip side, if you are getting paid, you should be doing the work. This has many consequences. If you are paying someone minimum wage, you believe they are only worth that much, and in return, they should only be putting in minimum effort. Story 99. What could possibly go wrong? Varric Tethras. The only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. One of my friends way back in high school. We are still alive, and for all I know, that is what hope is. Peter O'Toole as Henry II Plantagenet in The Lion in Winter. Story 100. You are not smart, so you should at least pretend to be smart. I know it sounds harsh, but honestly, it has worked so well for me in life thus far. Story 101. Why go backwards when you can go forwards? My grandpa. The context it was in was referring to an accident I had when I was 16 where I backed into someone's car. But it is pretty all-encompassing. Story 102. I was around 18 to 20 years old and had typical masculinity self-image anxiety. However, I was a member of a civic club and spent time with older men. One day, one of the men I had known for years stated during a conversation, "If those men with large attributes have as much fun as I do with my smaller one, God love them." Everyone laughed and agreed. Surprised me how true that was. Story 103. Be bloody, bold, and resolute. A quote from Macbeth. I think of it when tackling a new project I am nervous about. Story 104. I just think it is best, because you cannot miss what you forget. So let us just pretend. Everything and anything, between you and me, was never meant. Story 105. The most important relationship in your life is the relationship you have with yourself. Because no matter what happens, you will always be with yourself. Die N von Fürstenberg. Story 106. Someone once told me that time was a predator that stalked us all our lives. But I would rather believe that time is a companion who goes with us on the journey and reminds us to cherish every moment because they will never come again. What we leave behind is not as important as how we lived. Captain Picard, Star Trek, Generations. Story 107. And as a single leaf turns not yellow but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession, you walk together toward your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him, who, though faster and surer of foot, yet removed not the stumbling stone. Khalil Gibran. Story 108. Men lie, women lie, numbers do not. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. A snake will bite you. A thief will steal from you. Oh, and enemies will never betray you. Betrayal can only come from those you give your trust. Story 109. Anything goes, so not me, but 9 months in jail with parole after 6 months. Song to go with the sentence. How to Make Gravy by Paul Kelly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.